All right. So I follow a lot of Kingdom Hearts videos and podcasts and a lot of reviews and playthroughs and all that stuff. I love Kingdom Hearts. One game seems to be, I feel, being unjustly represented, at least in what it has to offer. In defense of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, or 358 days over 2, whichever it is. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you know Kingdom Hearts in its basic plot and something about it, because this is a spin-off game for the DS. So this would be a very bad place to jump into the series, or maybe not. We'll find out. Probably it is a bad place to start in the series. I'm not going to make an argument for its story per se in this, because that's kind of too complicated for me to cover in this, but I am going to make an argument for the game side of it, because this is a video game after all. So 358, as I'm going to call it to keep it short, is an action JRPG, much in the vein of the Kingdom Hearts series. One notable thing about it is that it's on the DS. This is some of the first spin-off games. There was the Game Boy Advanced game, this game on the original DS, Birth by Sleep on the PSP, and so on. So there's a lot of smattering of consoles that this game belongs to. And the DS is a really interesting platform, and that the graphics for it are not very good for 3D games. And by like very good for a handheld, at the time it was very good, but by today's standards it looks like approximately PS1, and it kind of varies game to game on like how they use it, but that's where I think some of the novelty lies visually in this game. I know the novelty in playing Chain of Memories for me was that it was, 16-bit. I'm not sure if Game Boy Advance is actually 16-bit, but it gave me that feel of like playing an older school JRPG, but it was in something familiar, and it was cool to hear all the music kind of like bit reduced or whatever. But this game is like playing a Kingdom Hearts, specifically Kingdom Hearts 1-ish, which I'll go into, on a PS1 kind of graphics wise. So it's not the prettiest, but interesting for what they had to use with the DS hardware. This is a mission-based game as opposed to an open-ish world game where you go out and do whatever you want within a world, usually to progress to the next one. In 358, you do missions, and that is how you move the story along. Living at 358 days as this protagonist, Roxas. Again, not even going to touch the story. Your magic is limited by your build, and your build is made up entirely of this kind of Tetris block system. And with this system, you keep your level and your magic and your upgraded skills and a whole bunch of information about how your character is built, and you fit them because they all have a Tetronimo style layout that you then have to place. And so it's a little puzzle game if you want to do your inventory, like Resident Evil did this kind of thing. So it's kind of inventory management, but really it's kind of builds, because each mission you can spec yourself a little bit differently, and the keyblades respond to what you put in them. So you can give, a magic keyblade like some strength ups to make it more balanced. And each keyblade has different fighting styles kind of attached to it, but you make a conscious choice going into each, or you find one that you like. This is a pretty big departure from what Kingdom Hearts has normally done, because normally what they do is you kind of have a real-time inventory and real-time ability to switch stuff out. Like if you don't like an ability, you can turn it off, or, if you have enough AP. But what's really cool about this is because it's mission based, you can spec yourself for a mission, which is something that it doesn't really happen in other Kingdom Hearts games. And I get like a little bit of satisfaction, although there's definitely some annoying points where there's like bosses I don't know how you would beat them if you weren't specifically spec'd to exploit like the one way to damage it. But we'll get to bosses later. It's on the DS, which has a touchscreen. I'm really glad they don't really use the touchscreen except for like maps, and I think you can use it to move around the dominoes. It's been a while since I played this. I've played this like a few times through, but I've watched it more recently than I've played it. This game also has an interesting thing with limit breaks, which is not something that's really in the other games. I mean, you might want to call reality shifts limit breaks, but specifically a health-related limit break. So when you get your health down to a certain point, there's like this bar, and when you're in danger and you get past the bar, you can hold down and kind of expose yourself to attack to do this limit break, which is like this big, special move. And this is really interesting, especially it puts a lot of those moments of, you're really close to death in a boss battle, but, you wait to heal because you can get just like, if you get that extra damage in, you might be able to win right away before you need to heal. Healing might, not work out. You may have no heals left because of item management, which again is so interesting for a Kingdom Hearts game, at least. I'm not sure if this is a feature as much as something that just kind of is there and I like, but Roxas is tiny. He's like a tiny person in a big world. And I really felt that more in Kingdom Hearts 1, which is maybe why this kind of strikes a resonant chord with me. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a lot more kind of classic action RPG, where your combos expand, but they don't turn into kind of like anime Dragon Ball Z-esque, like complete, like you don't touch the ground for 30 seconds, Kingdom Hearts 2. So it really focuses on like knowing your combo and like when to hit and magic. But because it's kind of clunky in PS1, again, we're using air quotes here, level technology, I like that jankiness sometimes like makes me nostalgic, but that's another thing that turns people off this game because it's not smooth and doesn't make you feel badass. You feel kind of clunky, like a kid fumbling around, which has to do with the story. I'm going to touch on it later. A lot of the things that are bad about the gameplay or objectively bad, some of the things I really don't like, do kind of add up towards the theme or getting to know Roxas, quote unquote, or kind of living a year as this person who starts kind of with nothing and slowly builds up. And monotony is part of the story too. So it kind of adds to it in a way. There's definitely days where you're just like, this mission needs to have a story advancement. I'm going to put it down and just not touch it ever again. There's definitely lots of that, especially towards earlier in the game. They're really slow when it comes to giving you important information. And that kind of sucks. But you keep pushing on because it's a JRPG. Another thing kind of complicating / maybe adding to the mission-based thing is when you leave for missions from your like big baddie home base, and when you come back from a level, and you're usually given like a segment of a level, not the full level to go to. But when you return to castle, like you decide when your mission is up, like you have to do the main thing, but there's also like little subquests, and those subquests will give you bonuses, more XP, more leveling up, more extra items and things, which are super useful, especially when, you know, you're building stuff and making, you know, kind of like Chain of Memories, you're making decks almost, because you can have like separate containers. Another quick note, which I haven't actually done, but this game is multiplayer. It has 4-person multiplayer. You can play as all of the organization members, including Roxas, Sora. Sora's not an organization member yet. Mickey, Donald, Goofy, which is really cool. No other game has had multiplayer like that. There's like some Mirage board stuff, maybe. I don't know. It's so cool. I hope they bring that to future games, because like, why not? It was at least cool to just play as a character and like, you know, attack as Marluxia, which like, you know, is cool. He's pretty. But this brings us to locations. They're not very creative with where they bring you in this game. Compared to other Kingdom Hearts games, you revisit a lot of stuff. There's slight alterations. Geometry's kind of changed, sometimes to cool effects. Sometimes it feels like you're stuck in an area you've seen a bunch and you're just going to have to keep doing missions there. Agrabah is here, and it is an extremely overused Kingdom Hearts level. It has some charm, but oof, it's a lot. The Cave of Wonders is different in this, which I kind of like. It has like these tall pillar rooms that are really scary and bleak. For some reason, I really enjoy that. Beast Castle is here. It is pretty much the same as Kingdom Hearts 2. A few alterations, I think. There's like a back passageway I think you can go to, or some places you can't. But it's basically Kingdom Hearts 2. Olympic Coliseum, essentially the same as Kingdom Hearts 1, I think. I really don't even remember. I have a full glaze that starts on this side of my face and then just envelops me like a cocoon every time that Olympus Coliseum comes up in a Kingdom Hearts game. It's the Olympic Coliseum. I don't know what you like expect at this point. Halloween Town, I can't remember if it's basically Kingdom Hearts 1 or basically Kingdom Hearts 2's version of Halloween Town, but it's Halloween Town for, you know, all intents and purposes. Wonderland is kind of like Kingdom Hearts 1, but there's also some weird stuff in it that's not like that. I get this confused with Wonderland in Recoded, which is fucking a whole nother story and maybe another video if I dare. This does have some fun hedge maze stuff. I don't know if you find hedge mazes fun. They're not even used as interestingly as I guess they are in Recoded. But Wonderland's always like a space fuck, so it's like, this door was a door to somewhere I didn't expect. Wonderland's whole thing is just like weird geometry, so it's like, yeah, it's more weird geometry. Neverland is kind of cool. It's more islands and you fly between them. Flying is a lot more important in it. It does have one of the worst bosses in this game, which I will absolutely get to. But it's kind of cool. You see a little bit more Hook and Smee. I liked being able to go to little islands. Sometimes there's a big skull island, the skull island. I don't really remember Peter Pan very much. And Twilight Town. And I'm going to camp out on Twilight Town, in fact, because my computer keeps going to sleep. I love Twilight Town. It is the coolest level. I am a sucker for moody lighting, specifically like sunset lighting, which obviously Twilight Town capitalizes on. I'm not a Kingdom Hearts nerd, I swear. You spend a lot of time here. I like being able to do missions here, even though a lot of them are boring and a lot of them are places you've been to or will be to. Again, builds familiarity with something that Roxas, well, the only space you really see Roxas in Kingdom Hearts 2, which is Twilight Town, which I think is interesting and again, emotionally works for me. Again, monotony. We'll see this in the end. Also, the world that never was, whatever. It's like you don't really see much of it. Concrete rooms of white. It's white. It's bad. It's where the bad guys live. It's pointy and it's white. And sometimes like light silver blue, but mostly white. Now this brings us to monotony. This game is pretty monotonous. Most JRPGs, well, not most, a lot of ones, even ones that are like highly regarded as good, are monotonous. Grinding is monotonous, but there's like kind of niceness to that. And the way that this game worked for me was being mission based. The monotony, it didn't hit me as bad, which is not always the case. Like mission based is not a save all for boring repetitive gameplay. Looking at you, Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key, or whatever it's called this week. Union, I think it is now. But in this game, you kind of move around between levels, at least more than you do in the other game. And you have to make builds sometimes, which is kind of interesting. But one thing you could say is that the monotony lets you kind of get to know this character slowly without a huge exposition dump because the character doesn't know anything about themselves. So you're literally experiencing this year for what feels like day-to-day realism based on how long you have to wait before actual stuff happens. Because in a regular year, like you're not going to experience like a bunch of interesting stuff every single day. It's going to be like some weeks happen where you just go to work. But in the Kingdom Hearts universe, and I go to work, so that's relatable. Again, I'm not going to try to get too much into the plot. I don't want to do that in this video. But this game is perfect for moody people who are sad. It deals with feelings of identity and being told your feelings don't matter and, you know, finding your purpose and blah, blah, blah. I love this game. It makes me cry. Makes me cry, especially at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2. In fact, if anything else, I just think that this game makes the whole, like, what's happening in Kingdom Hearts 2 means something, and that if you play this game, I played this game when I first played it when I was super depressed over Christmas break, so it was like perfect. And then like I played Kingdom Hearts 2 and I was like, fuck, like that opening with Roxas is so different when you have context, and that's you're specifically not given context in the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, and I think it's so cool what it adds knowing what's going on. Work friends also with that, like this is kind of about work friends finding like similarities and friendship where you may not think you'd be able to find it. That's a fun thing, I guess. Kind of like a water cooler friendship simulator. But yeah, I guess monotony in the end, it makes time pass like a year. And when this game is so thematically structured around a year or a little less than a year, when it's structured around a year as a time period, it makes you feel that year, and it feels like, fuck, like, I've been doing this forever. Like, oh, like I feel like I'm finally making headway, and then like stuff plateaus or there's extra complications or, you get stronger. And I think it effectively makes it feel like a year, which you can read as good or bad. All right, here's some notable bosses I think are really interesting. In the Beauty and the Beast level, there's this big like on wheels wall, like armored wall thing that's fun. Kind of a pain. I think I died to it a lot, but it was like a cool image. A lot of the bosses in this are sword based, which I think is interesting. Probably for plot reasons I don't want to go into, but like a lot of them are like holding swords, have a bunch of swords, or are like you-ish size, like you and a half sized, which is kind of an interesting change which I feel like is usually more like animal based, heartless configurations. But this game has a lot more like humanoid figures, which is interesting. So Antlion, I think it's how it's pronounced, in Agrabah is this big drill thing, and it takes place in this big like desert set piece that they kind of withhold from you for a little bit in the game, which I think is kind of cool that the levels eventually do have more to them, even though they start off super basic. And that was a fun, memorable battle. The Leech Grave at Halloween Town was incredibly difficult for me. I had a very hard time with that. Very cool looking boss. It was one of those bosses that's like kind of a pain in the ass to fight, but like if I got an art book, like there's old like the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, they're over there. Like companion books that came with it, it would show you high def glossy images of the bosses. And I would love to get like a Leech Grave, like full detail. I'll put it here for reference. Like, look at all of its like gross like legs and joints. Ooh, I want to fight it. Okay, here's the real bullshit. Ruler of the Sky is the worst boss in Kingdom Hearts history. Maybe, because at least the tough bosses in other games are fightable. Like, you know, they're tough, but it's like quick. And it's like, this is just a slow bleeding. Drop a minute. It is awful. It is more of a test of endurance of will than any sort of skill or preparedness. Basically, it is a flying boss that flies around, and you can fly too. Thank fucking God. Or I don't even know if this is helpful, but you fly like just as fast, if not like a infinitesimally smaller amount faster, but you can't really catch up to it quickly. And it flies around this big open area in Neverland and never really stops except for to do special moves. And it is so hard to get hits in on it. Magic doesn't quite go fast enough. I tried doing all magic builds and like shooting stuff at it. It wouldn't reach it. By the time you stopped to cast the spell, it like barely caught up to the tail because you have to attack the tail as it's flying around neutrally. And so I ended up just having to build like a quick attack heavy build, flying up to it, like hitting it twice, and then it gets away from you because the act of hitting it stops your character. So it's like, you know, I'm going, hit it, and then it fall behind. And it took me like 15, 20 minutes or something. When I finally did it, it was a huge pain in the ass and should not even be in the game or be in the game in like a different way. If they ever made an HD remake of it, I hope they would change or get rid of this boss. It's cool looking. It's just such a pain in the ass. It like almost made me put this game down. I really love this game. Fuck the Ruler of the Sky. All right, I love this game, but I'm not going to let it get away with some absolute bullshit. Here are some downsides. This game took too long. It just takes too long. From start to finish, it is too long. Games used to be more valuable to me when I could like kind of feel time progressing in it. Now, as I do lots of stuff, that sucks, and it makes me resent the game, and I don't like finishing it if I have to go through bullshit. Looking at you, the last 10% of Persona 5, an otherwise perfect game. With the cool part of making builds, you can also make a build that's entirely unhelpful for the mission you're going into, and sometimes even detrimental. You cannot bring magic to a thing where you pretty much need magic. You can make it so you have a heavy ground attack, but the thing you need to fight for like to beat that mission is an airborne, or like a low to the ground airborne, where you need aerial combos. So you can totally like fuck yourself up with a bad build, which is kind of annoying because once you get into a mission, you have to like abort it, and then it's like you have to go rebuild. It's like a pain in the ass, but like, you know, it comes with giving people the ability to do builds, is that sometimes your build is going to be wrong, and that sucks. So look up stuff ahead of time if it looks like it's going to be tough. The difficulty is weird. Sometimes it's exceptionally, if not like boringly easy, and sometimes it is very difficult, and it seems to like fluctuate in a non-consistent ramp up. It kind of jumps all over the place. Like you'll have a bunch of easy ass missions and then like a boss that will stop your progress for like weeks, and then it'll go back to easy ass missions and then like one hard boss. It's like really inconsistent and is one of the many other things that makes the pacing in this game weird. The controls are sluggish. There's just no way around it. They're super sluggish. It's a DS game doing 3D PS1 era graphics. It's sluggish. And a lot of the locations are recycled. They're not places we really haven't been to. There's slightly different versions or tweaks on it. It is a Kingdom Hearts side game in that way, where it is like, oh, I'm really, really cashing in on revisiting it. But not quite as bad, I feel like, as Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories or Rechain or Kingdom Hearts Coded. Those games, you follow Sora and you like beat for beat hit all of those things you did in the first game. And if you played the first game a few times, you're like, okay, it's not fun to rehash that anymore. I can always play the first game because you keep putting it out in HD compilations. So I can always play the first game in increasingly higher fidelity. So I don't want something that approximates the first game. You can just play the first game. Here are my final thoughts. This game is worth playing if you have a DS. And the cool thing is it's like the original DS. It's not the 3DS or whatever. It kind of behooves you to know Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 at least. Honestly, Chain of Memories as well. You could watch cutscene movies. There's a bunch of recap podcasts. If for some reason you want to jump in at this point, don't jump in at 358. But it's a really good game. And if you played the main Kingdom Hearts series and haven't explored the rest of it, I consider starting there maybe. Chain of Memories, it is such a rehash of the first one in level wise, but the story is super important to know into going to Kingdom Hearts 2. But I find the gameplay really hard to get through the whole game with. I like action RPGs better, and the complication of like running out of cards just bums me out. And some of the technical stuff in that game is just tweaked not in a way that I like. It took a chance with a different formula, which is something that Kingdom Hearts games have kind of done, and to some successes and some not. I prefer kind of the clunky combo system as opposed to like what Birth by Sleep got, which is basically spamming special commands, which like didn't ever make me feel like I got timing down, you know, because once you learn like a Keyblade in 358, you like know the timing of it, how big the swing is. You got to know each kind of Keyblade's fight style. Whereas in Birth by Sleep, you know, you're basically hitting stuff until one of your 18 different special gauges fills, and then you just do the special move, and usually have iframes. So I prefer this battle system to Birth by Sleep and Chain of Memories. Definitely Recoded. Again, Recoded is a whole nother. Maybe one day I'll make a Recoded video. A bunch of Kingdom Hearts fans tend to overlook this game and a lot of recap things. Just watch the cutscene movie for the lore, and I definitely get that. Like, the lore is cool, and if you're like really into the games for that, like, watch the cutscene movie because it's way more beautiful. They finally included the final boss battle, which without it was kind of stupid because it like is a really climactic moment, and they cut out like the big climax like fight scene thing. Because they don't have fight scenes. It was just, you know, cutscenes and words to read. So yeah, I hope I have laid out in some sort of way something that makes you want to take either a second look or a first look at this game. It's pretty accessible. I think I see it in used game stores pretty often when I'm like just like poking around. And I certainly don't need a second copy of it. But I really love this game. It's one of my favorite in the Kingdom Hearts series. It's definitely not the best. But I think it has a lot to offer. And I feel like specifically that where it has to offer is how the gameplay interacts with the story. Neither of which is like the best video game you'll ever play, but I feel like works as a whole. And I feel like people don't think about the gameplay as like building up the story or impacting it. But I know when I play through the game, I get much more of less now that I'm replaying it. When I played through the game, I got more connected to Roxas and what was going on because of the kind of hostage situation where I had spent so much time with him. I was like, I must identify with him. I don't know who I am anymore. So hopefully that convinces you to play this average action RPG on the DS. If you liked this video, weird. And if you want to hear more of me talking, I co-host a video game and comic book podcast, and I'm going to put the link down there. There's a Don't Think Twice remix with like Simple and Clean and Sanctuary in it that I'm also going to link down there. You might be interested if you're watching this video probably. And yeah,